what's up? Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good?
Well, you talked about the things that you're looking for when you're analyzing a company. I wonder from on a daily basis, the deal flow, how often are you involved, or is it a process before it even gets to you?
Okay. Carlyle is probably investing $10 billion to $12 billion of equity every year. And we're probably doing around the world, I don't know, 50, 70 deals a year. I sit on the investment committees of many of these things, but I am not doing the deals. So I read the investment committee memos. I give them my thoughts. They generally ignore them, but I give them my thoughts. They can ignore them or not. I have a family office, and they do. My family office does a lot of investments that are smaller than Carlyle's, and I look at what they're doing. But I generally, I don't really have the time to dig into any one deal that much. So I just hire good people and hope that they'll come up with good recommendations. If you keep turning down the recommendations of the people you hired, they're going to quit. So you have to trust them a bit. So I generally trust people and generally don't turn down the recommendations. So I've made mistakes. I turned down Facebook personally. And when Mark was in college, I turned down, in effect, Amazon when Jeff was just starting the company. So I make a lot of mistakes.
Well, Mr. Rubenstein, it's been a pleasure. Before we leave, anything that you would like to say?
Okay.
Book,
Well,
anything?
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me. And, I appreciate it. Good day.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Billionaire conversation.
There you have it. ladies and
God
gentlemen.
is good.
Yeah.
Is there any other? This is historic. Like
That's pretty. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
Novogratz, Cuban, him, and I've been watching this show for years. So thank you for putting it together, because when it came up, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be a legendary situation." So
Market Mondays, you gotta come through Market Mondays.
I was just saying, when the text came through, we were just like, wait, say that this and
him?
that's the name you're talking about? Yeah, that's the name. Okay, yeah, we gotta get that.
Yeah. Everybody put it. What's the biggest lesson that you learned tonight from him? I think it was a very interesting debate, but we can't come back to the same lessons of risk, seeing other things that people don't see, research, digging in deep into reading. What was the biggest lesson that you may have taken away from him tonight?
I just like the fact that, kind of things that we have been speaking about have been reiterated by people at the highest level.
Yeah.
So we're talking about managing over $400 billion.
Yeah.
Like, just think about that number. But when we ask what sectors, it should sound very familiar to what you've been saying, like healthcare. He was saying it was 7% of the governmental spending. Now it's over 22%. There's money that's going into there, and it's not going to stop. People want to live longer. People want to live healthier. Yeah. We've said these things. And so to hear it at this level being reiterated, I think is very profound.
I think the part about humility is extremely important.
Yeah.
And that's something that he said several times, actually.
Yeah.
As far as leadership.
Can you tell them why real quick? And I have piggyback to it.
Why he said it, or why I think it's important?
Why you think it's important?
I think it's important because, one thing is that you have to not only manage how the public perceives you, but how internally people perceiving you as well. And like Red Panda Rebellion, the word rebellion is a very strong word, but you don't want a rebellion internally.
Yeah.
And that can happen, easily. That can happen easily when a leader is looked at as a showboat, or a leader is looked at as taking all of the glory. And now you start to have, rebellions happening internally, and that can cause issues. And, that's one of the things, like when you read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and 48 Laws of Power, they always talk about, always elevating other people and always giving other people praise and different things of that nature, because it's extremely important to kind of stay under the radar. It's extremely important to, not make it feel like you're the only one that's getting the attention, because that leads to jealousy
and envy.
And even if it's not warranted, it's just human nature. Somebody can be jealous and envy. And even if you really do deserve it, it still could lead to jealousy and envy. So he said he was very, big on that as far as, the humility factor. And then I think that's something that's extremely important.
Yeah, I've seen two of the biggest blow-ups in the last maybe 15 years. Sam being one of them, Madoff being one of them. Egotistically, not factoring that someone can defeat you. It was like one whistleblower that finally turned the knob on Madoff that made people listen. Getting into it with CZ was not smart, especially when like CZ is a better entrepreneur and smarter. So, and just to say, hey, I'm going to buy your company, and to know that you're down and out in an emotional space, to actually send over the financials. That's the biggest finesse I've ever seen. For a person to turn over the financials with nothing stated. Like, but yeah, I think humility is important. I think sometimes you have to let people know what you're capable of, but you don't want to create enemies, because if you create too many of them, it definitely can lead to a downfall.
And one of the things that I realized too is that a leader never tells anybody to follow him.
Yeah, facts. That's a fact.
You don't have to.
If you think about it, right? Like, people follow you because of your characteristics. People follow you because of your charisma, because of what you have done, because they're drawn to you. But if you really think about it, like, as a great leader, you don't have to tell anybody to follow you.
Yeah.
It happens organically. So when you have to tell people how great you are, tell people to follow you, then that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Because that means that it's really not there, and you're trying to make up through it insecurities to actually, force people to believe a certain thing that they don't necessarily believe without you saying that.
Yeah.
I think one of the other things, just on an everyday person level, was having that ability to make a transition or a shift. Right? Like, he went to law school.
Yeah.
And realized, like, what am I doing here? I don't love this. And then took a job in politics, and then that didn't work. And then went back to law school knowing that he didn't love it. And then finally found finance as a passion. So we do that how many people do that? We're going to school right now.
Yeah.
And we're like, I don't know what I'm doing here, why I'm doing it, but I still am.
And not brave enough to leave.
Enough to leave, or pivot, or find something that they're passionate about or purposeful about. This is something we spoke to young students about over the weekend. It was that difference between passion and purpose.
Yeah.
And it's very important to realize it, because the same thing I was passionate about at 20, I'm not at 40. It changes, right? But your purpose never changes, because that's what you've been put on earth to do. And so that's interesting. Like, even like at his level, right? What am I doing here? I wish I never went to law school.
Yep.
It would have saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
So a lot of people deal.
That's 9 years he can't get back.
You can't get it back, and financially you can't get it back. And so it's interesting to hear him say it, because there's so many people that do that. Yeah,
and the love for the craft. We saw Cuban talk about it, Mike Novogratz, every big guest who's really steeped in investing. Like, he's still energetic about it. Like, his energy gave me energy, and it made me want to even double down and triple down more. And, he's still grinding as if he doesn't have billions. So I'm like, when people are like, hey, take some time off, I'm like, I feel you. Is that God telling me to take time off?
That was
God's plan. Yeah. But when you love something dearly, it'll be easy for you to put time. That's a great test. Like, if it's a chore for you to do it, it's not your thing. Yeah, it should come effortlessly.
All right. So let's move along. Let's talk about some political stuff. So another thing that we have to correct.
Yes.
Last week.
Oh, I was wrong. There was no red wave. Put that in chat. You was wrong.
So
boy, he went on his own. No crystal ball in it.
No.
A lot of people had speculated that it was going to be a shellacking, a red wave.
That was me. I humbly say I was wrong.
And the Dems actually,
they surfed it.
They won. Not only did they won, they kept majority of the Senate.
Yeah.
And there's still 19 races in Congress that's up for grabs. So but even if they lose Congress, they're not going to lose by that much in the House.
The House, yeah.
And they've done it. They did an extremely impressive job. And now the Republicans are pointing fingers at each other. I watched these political shows, so they're blaming Donald Trump. They're saying that it's Trump's fault because he got involved and
partially
he muddied up the waters, and they want him just to go away. Then they're blaming Mitch McConnell. They're saying it's his fault.
Really?
Good old Mitch.
Yeah.
Well, even Mike Pence finally spoke out against Donald Trump for the first time ever.
Interesting. I didn't hear that.
What did he say? Well, he finally gave his interview about January 6th, obviously, the run on the Capitol, and said that, it was unprofessional. It shouldn't have happened. He waited all that time.
Smart man.
Think about it now. When tomorrow, I believe that they're saying that Donald Trump's going to announce that he's actually going to, run again for president. So it's interesting, man. Like, a lot of the people that he supported and the things he supported and the people who didn't believe in the election, they didn't win. Yeah. And so, people voted in.
I think it's a good sign when you have that much loss, that much travesty. It's really hard to follow. People were going for those antics when he won, but when you're losing, it's like Tekashi. Like, At one point, Tekashi was winning, and everyone backed him for that one summer. And now it's like, hey, let's steer away. I know he's back out here buying bags and all that, but but I think the Republican Party is seeing that they have lost their way, and they have opportunity because the Democrats need to find a candidate. So I believe that the Republicans are looking at it and saying, if we can find a candidate that is viable, maybe like DeSantis or someone who's better, and we can push him there, maybe we can overcome some of the stuff that we have with Trump.
I think you're right. I think DeSantis is the guy. You know, he didn't take any support. He didn't have any support from Trump. He actually spoke up.
Trump didn't.
Yeah, he doesn't. He didn't support him at all, but he still won the state of Florida. But on the Democratic side, I think it helps Joe Biden. I think it helps that, you know, obviously they kept the Senate, and they still could have another seat in the Senate when the runoff in Atlanta is over and done. Atlanta, Georgia, what's going on? But they still could have another seat. Yeah. But that helps because he's obviously the president in place now, and they didn't get beat down like everybody thought. Yeah. And so a lot of his views and a lot of things he was saying and campaigning for the people, obviously in Pennsylvania, obviously in Nevada, in Arizona, places where they thought it could be a toss-up, but they could lose. They didn't. Yeah. And so maybe it helps him and now for a second term.
Well, the thing about it is bringing it back to the economic side of it. As we know, stocks usually go up after midterm elections, especially when there's a split government. And the reason being is because not a lot changes.
Yep.
It's like, all right, we got some security for at least 2 years. It's locked in play. Yeah. Like, you know, we know what to expect. Like nothing's going to really change, right? And yeah, it looks like that's going to happen. Split government. It looks like the Republicans will probably have control over the House by a slim margin. The Democrats have control over Congress, Senate, and there's a Democratic president. And then the stock market went up every single day.
Yeah.
Last week.
And if you guys do your research historically, that week in November normally is a positive week. So it was some good signs and good rallying signs there.
So are we still, all right, so this brings back to the question that we asked before. Is this good for the stock? Is the stock market going to be up?
Regardless of what happens, floods, war, hurricanes, political dispersion, the market is always going to be up. The players may change and the sectors may change, but overall, yes.
I mean, up
short term
in the next year.
Oh,
in the next year.
The Dow, S&P, Russell, probably the NASDAQ, yes. S&P and Dow, yes, will be up overall.
Okay. Yeah, I think the analysts have now raised almost all of those indexes. I saw that the number now for the S&P by the end of the year is maybe 4,200.
That may be a stretch. I know I call 4,200. Then I'll be happy if we tap.
If we get to 4,000?
Yeah, if we get 4,000, 4,100.
I mean, we were right there. We were at like 3,992. Yeah. So, I mean, 4,100 would be great to see. I think short term, there's some room for some gains. But we'll see. Obviously, when we were here last week, when we talked about not only the election, but the CPI numbers coming in were important. And obviously we saw that, and David spoke to it about the 7.7 rate of inflation. That helps because it shows that it's tapering down. Was it an overreaction? We saw the best day in the history of the NASDAQ.
But in tandem with the fallout of FTX and FTT.
All those things happened.
So that was a lot of positioning of, hey, you guys were supposed to be the saviors. Now all the hedge funds piled in money and said, okay, this is where, and we have to realize too, when crypto said, hey, we don't want to be tied to the banks, now that's going to be used against them heavily. Now you need more regulation. They're going to go on an entire smear campaign, lobbying campaign against crypto for regulation and for regulatory reasons. But when you're reporting to clients, you can now go to a client and say, hey, there's more safety here while that fell apart. So you have to be very careful, once again, on who you choose to wage war with. Anytime that people say that a monetary system is a liberation tool for the people, it usually isn't, because money is not meant to be a tool of liberation. Money is meant to be a tool of control.
That's a bar.
This that Red Panda Anthem. Ian, what's up? This that Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. Your boy going up. I know they can't stand it.